You can agree with everything Congresswoman Lauren Boebert has said about Joe Biden, and I think still recognize that this is a bad idea, poorly timed. If you want to deal with the border and put Democrats in an awkward situation, why not impeach Secretary Mayorkas of Homeland Security? That would force some awkward votes for Democrats, particularly border Democrats, who will stand by their man, and the public will give them a pass for standing by their man, Joe Biden, but may not give them so much of a pass if they impeach Secretary Mayorkas. In fact, for all the belly aching of the Republicans about the border situation, why haven't they impeached Secretary Mayorkas? But on the Biden situation, I'm not a big fan of Kevin McCarthy, but I find myself on his side against Congresswoman Boebert, who's been on the show a number of times and who I like. This is lone wolf grandstanding on her part. Now, follow with me here. And again, I said some of you will disagree with me, but at least understand my thinking here and the thinking of the Republicans. There is a pending investigation of the Biden family by the House of Representatives. They are collecting data. They are collecting evidence. They are collecting witnesses. They are subpoenaing people. They are getting documents. If you advance the impeachment resolution, all of that collection of evidence stops. They're trying to build a case. In an impeachment, they don't take new evidence per se. They take all the evidence thus far collected, and then they pursue it. The House Democrats didn't do an impeachment resolution of Donald Trump over the Ukraine stuff until they had all the evidence in play, and then they just heard from the witnesses. They already knew what evidence they had. The Republicans aren't there yet. So if you do an impeachment resolution right now, you preempt the full investigation of Joe Biden. And that is essentially what Lauren Boebert is doing. She said yesterday she's doing it because she doesn't really believe they're doing as much of an investigation as they say. But they can't do an investigation once the impeachment hearings begin. They've got to take the existing evidence. You can bring the people forward. You can call the witnesses forward if you can find them. But remember, there are a couple they can't find, and this becomes an embarrassment for the GOP. But there's more. If you did the Mayorkas investigation and the Mayorkas impeachment, that would go to trial in the Senate, and it would even force Senate Democrats into an awkward position because Americans are really aggrieved about the border, and it would force tough questions. He would probably resign instead of going through a trial, and if he went through a trial, he would probably keep his job, but it would still put some of those Democrats, particularly swing state Democrats who are up for election next year, like John Tester and Joe Manchin and Sherrod Brown, it would put them in a very difficult situation between the fentanyl crisis and the border crisis. That's not going to happen with Joe Biden. And also there's this. The voters, Republicans need to win. There aren't enough Republicans on their own to win the presidency. You got to have independent voters. They don't care about the Biden crime family stuff. They care about a whole lot of other issues. There's not enough evidence out there right now for them to care. You've got to build the evidence to make these people care, and you don't have that evidence right now. They're trying to get the witnesses. They're trying to get the whistleblowers. Doing an impeachment motion to begin the impeachment hearing of the president in the House of Representatives preempts all of that and shuts a lot of it down. And I don't know that the Congresswoman understands that. I don't know that most of you understand this procedure here. You see, what happens is the Democrats, just look at what they did with Donald Trump and Ukraine. They began a detailed behind-the-scenes investigation, subpoenaing people, building a case, building all the evidence, getting all the witnesses, getting the witness statements, and then they voted to impeach based on having all of that evidence. And then the impeachment hearing in the House presented all of the previously acquired evidence and witness statements. They didn't go out and do a witch hunt and find new information from this. They took all the information they had that led up to the impeachment resolution. Lauren Boebert has now done the impeachment resolution. It must be considered. It's called a privileged motion in the House of Representatives. An impeachment motion is a privileged motion, which means the House must consider it before all other business, including the subpoenaing of the witnesses that the House Oversight Committee wants to continue building the case. This shuts all of that down. So they don't have the whistleblowers ready to testify yet. Well, now they're not going to get them if this passes. They don't have all of the unredacted transcripts of FBI interviews yet. They can't get them once this happens. I mean, they can try, but good luck. The larger issue, though, is that what this does is it keeps the GOP on this message, one voters don't connect with, and keeps them off the message voters do care about. Like, for example, yesterday, Riley Gaines testified before the United States Senate. In her testimony, she refuted the head of the Human Rights Campaign, the Queer Theory Advocacy Group. They used to be a gay and lesbian advocacy group. They now consider themselves a Queer Theory Advocacy Group or some such like that. And that woman refused to acknowledge biological differences between men and women. She claimed that no man could beat Serena Williams, and Riley Gaines pointed out that actually the 205th ranked man in tennis beat them both pretty decisively. And the next week he became the 350th best tennis player and still would have beaten them. None of that got covered even by Fox News and Newsmax to the extent it otherwise would have, because they were all talking about Lauren Boebert's impeachment resolution. CNN focused on the impeachment resolution, didn't have to focus on the cultural issues, sucked up all the news time so you didn't have to talk about it. Newsmax, Fox News, they gave cursory coverage to Riley Gaines and spent more time debating Lauren Boebert. She sucked all the oxygen out of the room and stepped on a major point of contention for independent voters who don't want their daughters competing against boys. And who knows how many of them know the Republicans are looking into this, because in large part, coverage of Biden's impeachment resolution dominated it. The Republicans are going to win in 2024 not by impeaching Joe Biden, which is going nowhere. You're not going to get the Senate Democrats to do it. You're just wasting your time. This is a waste of time. You do have to understand that. As much as you want to score points on Joe Biden, the Senate Democrats will never vote to convict. So why bother when you could be focusing on boys and girls sports? You could be focused on cost of living issues. You could be focused on the pornography within kids' schools the Democrats say is appropriate. You could be focusing on all the cultural and economic issues voters care about. Voters simply don't care about this issue. You may, but you're going to vote for the Republicans anyway. You alone, and those of you like you and me, we can't get the Republicans across the finish line. We've got to have that army of independent voters who are mad at Democrats who come with us, and they're not going to be mad at Democrats over impeachment. They're going to be mad at us for wasting everybody's time instead of talking about the cultural and economic issues. And there's one more thing here. Did you see what Merrick Garland's Department of Justice just did to Hunter Biden? You collect all of the evidence. You build all of the case. You impeach Joe Biden. Do you really think the Department of Justice is going to do anything? Of course not. So you haven't even built that case yet. This is a bad idea, poorly timed. I'm actually with the overwhelming consensus of the conservatives and the House moderate Republicans together saying we shouldn't be doing this. Maybe 5 Republicans think this is a good idea. She's lone wolfing this. And there's something else here for Congressman Boebert, who barely won re-election in Colorado. This isn't going to help her win re-election either. And I would prefer for her to stay in the House of Representatives. She's not focusing on constituent service. She's focusing on building her name among the right. I deeply enjoy having her in Congress. I think the world of her. But this is a bad idea, poorly timed, and she should reconsider it.
Want to be on the